What we're doing in defence and security is moving IHS from being largely a provider of reference data towards more dynamic, actionable intelligence. And we can do that now because of the way that social media is revolutionising the industry. So where previously it was only really governments that were able to monitor insurgencies in granular detail, you've now got teenagers mapping insurgent activity in Syria from their bedrooms, or tracking the use of anti-aircraft missiles by jihadist groups. You've got bloggers sitting on the Bosphorus taking pictures of Russian naval vessels crossing through, posting that online and discussing it. It's incredible what these guys are doing. And the amount of information that's now openly available online is totally unprecedented, and it changes things. So over the last 2 years, we've been building the infrastructure and the resources to really collect and process this information on a large scale. And then by providing that to our team of analysts, we've been able to generate some really unique insights. We've been doing a lot of work on Iraq and Syria as part of the IHS conflict monitor, and that's based largely on the infrastructure I just mentioned. And some of those insights we've been releasing to the media over the last few months. So when you take the aggregated data, you can produce quite detailed insights into the performance of different armed actors. So one of the things we were looking at was the Islamic State's territorial gains and losses since January 2015. And all sides are constantly reporting their gains and losses on social media, which allows us to track which areas are controlled by which groups and how that control is shifting. And you can see quite clearly how, despite the publicized gains around Palmyra, overall the Islamic State's territory actually shrunk by nearly 10% between January and the end of June this year. And that was mainly due to losses against the Iraqi government and the Kurds. And you can do the same thing for any of the other actors. So, for example, the biggest loser so far this year is the Syrian army. In fact, they've suffered even further territorial losses since we built this graphic, and it's now closer to 18% of territory they've lost since the start of 2015. And that goes some way towards explaining the greater Russian and Iranian involvement to shore up the Assad government. In a different example, we looked at the Islamic State's use of suicide truck bombs, or VBIEDs, and there's a clear upward trend in the number of suicide truck bombs in the first half of 2015, starting in Iraq and then followed closely by Syria. And this indicates the Islamic State's growing capability, both in the mass production of IEDs and also in the supply of willing suicide bombers. But we've also used the same data set to produce much more kind of in-depth work. So we were looking at the leadership structure of the Islamic State, identifying key individuals. We've been trying to understand their economic policy and how they train foreign fighters that come into the country. We're learning by doing, and I think there's a lot more that we can get out of this. So we're looking at, in terms of capabilities, expanding into building a capacity to analyze commercially available satellite imagery. We're expanding our network of human sources to cover areas that you can't quite get that level of detail on from social media. We're also looking into expanding geographically. So right now we're working on using the same methods in Libya, in Tunisia and Egypt. But I think you can also do the same for conflicts more generally. So we could do it for Yemen, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and there's a whole range of opportunities that we're pursuing now.